This is a demonstration of the new screening functionality available on myscouts.ca. We're using a test volunteer here to understand the way that this new functionality will work. We first have to access the individual profile of the volunteer that we want to examine, and then under our admin options, which should be available according to the roles of our own profile, we'll see the screening option here. If we open up this tab, we'll see a window which contains a number of different items. At the top here, we'll see the pending roles or role of that volunteer. So any roles that still require either the manual intervention to activate or any of the missing components as per the bottom of the screen. So at the bottom of the screen we have the volunteer screening tabs. First tab being the VSS and PRC entries. So instead of being recorded as a static date at which that volunteer has an expiring PRC, each renewal or each instance of those records is now recorded. So a complete history can be determined by looking at this list now. The current PRC for this individual expires in 2014, but if that were to expire today, we would be able to add a new PRC through this button here, and then we would see a new PRC entry. But we would also be able to see the old PRC entry, so we can see a complete history of how that has evolved. The same goes for the VSS, so if that needs renewing as well, we'll add that in as another entry. These entries can also be edited after they've been entered, so if we need to edit the result of this PRC, if we made a mistake while we were entering it, we can edit that and go back. We can enter an application date for an example. Let's say this was a VSS instead of a PRC, we could change the type of this entry. Any of those fields can be updated. The next tab over is the References tab, so this works much the same way as the VSS or PRC tab in that each of the references is treated as a separate entry. As a quick overview, we can see the contact date, the name of the individual that served as a reference, the recommendation that they made, the relationship to the volunteer, as well as the outcome of that interview. Much like the VSS and PRC, we can go back and edit any of the existing reference entries. This will look identical to entering a new one, so we can edit any of these fields. Or we can go back and we can enter a new reference, which will give us a blank form and the ability to enter an extra reference onto their record. The next tab over is the Training Records tab. This will indicate to us, at minimum, the elements of the mandatory training that are perhaps missing or present. So if there is no training recorded for olive oil, for example, we would see the training, the mandatory training elements, and their status would be missing. If they had additional training, that would be listed here as well, but the ones that we're looking for are the missing ones. Once these courses are marked as complete, either through an in-person training course or through the e-learning platform, they would then be stamped here with the date of completion and the status of that training. So this gives you, this whole screen gives you a quick overview rather, of the different elements that need to be in place before we can hit this activate button up here, training being one of them. And if we're aware of a training course being complete and we have the ability to add that training, we'll be able to add it through here, which will bring us over to the training library, and we can thus select the course and enter the training for that individual if we're serving as area commissioner, an area training deputy, for example. So we would then select the course and go through the regular process. The code of conduct here records the date on which the code of conduct was first seen by the volunteer, if it was recorded electronically, and the date on which it was signed. So if we have a volunteer that saw the code of conduct online but did not agree to it originally, or perhaps they submitted a paper copy later on, that's when we would need to go into this training tab and click the Add Code of Conduct here to record that they completed it via paper, and we would then just need to make sure that we hold on to that paper copy. The approvals here is going to serve as the method by which new volunteers are approved at the council level. So this is one of those elements that needs to be in place before the individual can be activated. Prior to this, activations were for new volunteers were done by the council by adding the VSS or PRC, which can only be entered by the council, as the last element. So the group would previously have to enter all the other requirements first. The council would add then the VSS or PRC to provide that approval. Now that's done separately through the Approvals tab. So as soon as the volunteer is input into the system, if the office has the VSS or the PRC, they can be entered right away. We just wouldn't add this approval until the council executive director is satisfied that the individual can be activated. So that would need to be present. In the screening tab here, we're able to add the screening checklist, which was previously under the admin options menu. So if we go into here, we'll go through all the same questions and requirements that were listed previously, but that's now completely integrated with this new screening view. So once we step through all these separate tabs, we'll be able to see all the information related to and necessary for processing that activation. If we were to go ahead, and clearly here in this example we have missing elements, the training is not present, we have the VSS PRC references, code of conduct, the approval is already given actually, and the screening checklist is not present. We can proceed and activate the individual up here next to the pending roles option. We're going to see a warning here because we have some training missing, and it's going to tell us that. So activation of this volunteer failed for the following reasons: training is missing, references are missing, and an interview is missing. We can go past this process and we can force that activation through, or we can heed this warning, go back and make sure that everything is good. If for some reason we need to override this, though, we can go ahead and activate Olive Oil. She has no more pending roles because the role has been activated. So if we go back and if we refresh our view here, we'll now see that her role in the first expedition pack is active. So that's a good overview of the functionality available in the new screening interface. Of course, any questions about operating this or conducting the processes now through this new interface can be fielded to the Scouts Canada Help Centre, which can be reached at 1-888-855-3336 or electronically by going to scouts.ca/help.